What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Two Worlds podcast. I'm Jake, and with me tonight is the Bane and Catman to my Deadshot. It's Casey and our special guest, Drew. How we doing, fellas?
I the answer to that depends on which one I am.
You're Bane.
Oh, okay, I can take that.
I mean, I guess I'm Catman
Yeah, come on.
then.
You
Why do
you
you get to
love
be
Catman.
Deadshot?
I was quickly I realized when I hit record that we did not have an intro, and those were just the first three members of the Secret Six that came to mind.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So,
The correct answer was to that was like you were just supposed to say like, yeah, I'm the one who hosts the show. I get to say that.
oh, well, I don't know. I don't think Deadshot's like the coolest on the team, you know.
But
I'm
he's
actually not that big of a fan of Deadshot in general, so I don't know why I chose Deadshot for me.
it's because you wish that you were Will Smith.
Yes, that is
He just really
exactly
wants to slap Chris Rock.
it. Anywho, um, Drew, we usually kick off an episode by answering some trivia questions.
Oh, okay.
We've got a nice big book of Marvel trivia that was gifted us by a listener. So I'll just throw a couple questions
You,
to the both of you.
you had to pick Marvel, huh?
Dude, I know, I'm
We
sorry.
we've looked for DC trivia and it's surprisingly hard to find.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
there's like plenty of Batman only, but then it's just like, what's the identity of the Riddler? And,
Yeah.
it's just super
Or
lame.
or it gets like very specific to like what issue did this one obscure thing happen? You're like, who knows this except for Mark Wade?
All right. So, Drew, you're the guest. We'll start with you. These are
Okay.
all multiple choice. Um, which of these Spider-Man foes was a founding member of the Frightful Four? We've got Doctor Octopus, Sandman, Mysterio, and Electro.
I have no idea. Just a shot in the dark guess. Mysterio.
Casey, do you know offhand?
I think it's Sandman.
Yep, you are correct. It is
Is he,
Sandman.
I think that was like the era of Sandman where he had the weird costume, like not the green shirt, but like he had that, I don't know, it was like a whole costume which he never had outside of that.
You are correct. It's like a weird green armor that looks nothing
Yeah.
like Sandman at all. I didn't know that either, Drew. All right, Casey, over to you.
All right.
Which of the Inhumans was a member of the original Frightful Four? And if you know this without the options, then just go ahead and say it.
I don't know this without the options.
Hmm.
As soon as you said Inhumans, I'm like, well, this isn't gonna turn out well.
All right, we've got Gorgon, Karnak, Medusa, and Triton.
Triton?
It is not.
Oh, okay.
Drew?
Gorgon.
Nope, it's Medusa.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. All right. Drew, back at you.
Okay.
At which university did Reed Richards first meet Ben Grimm and Victor Von Doom? Is it Columbia University, Empire State University, State University of New York, or Harvard University?
I would imagine that it's Empire State.
Let's find out. Because I don't know.
I think that's where Peter Parker went to school. I don't know about them because I really don't know either.
Um, Boy, you'd think a quick Google search of that exact question would give me an answer, but it doesn't. So I don't know, man.
Is it not in the book?
So it's there's like this little battery thing right here,
Oh, okay.
but it doesn't work. So, um,
So, okay, I just pulled it up. It says Reed Richards is the most famous graduate of State University. Richards' roommate Ben Grimm was also a noted All-American football player.
okay. That is different than what Wikipedia says. So
Of
it
course.
says Empire State University. So whatever. It's one of them. They met at
Yeah,
school. Okay.
You know what? If Wikipedia says it, I'm gonna take that. I
hell
got.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know whose turn it is. One of
It
you
was
can
mine.
answer.
It's Casey's turn.
Which of the Inhumans has elemental powers controlling air, earth, fire, and water?
Oh, the Airbender.
Yes, the Avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got Black Bolt, Karnak, Crystal, and Triton.
Is it Triton?
Probably.
If I'm just gonna guess Triton for any Inhuman question from here on out.
Yeah. The powers. Let's see. I don't know shit about the Inhumans.
No.
No. He's just like an aquatic boy. And
Okay, so
he's
it's
real good at
Crystal then.
swimming.
Because I know Karnak because Warren Ellis had that Karnak book for like a hot second. So I know a little bit about him, and Black Bolt just doesn't talk. So I know that. So it's got to be Crystal.
Yes, it is Crystal.
Okay.
Did you know that, Drew?
I sure did.
Okay.
I definitely, absolutely knew that.
See, I didn't even know she had powers because I just would always see her as like she was just with the Fantastic Four and she never really did anything in the
Yeah.
books I read. She was just kind of there. So I was like, oh, guess she was just born there without powers.
Well, I feel like Marvel really wanted her to be a thing for a while.
Yeah.
But okay, Drew, one more for
All
you.
right.
What is the main superpower of the Inhumans' gigantic dog Lockjaw? Do you need the options?
I do. I know who Lockjaw is. That's like, other than Karnak, that's like the first of the Inhumans whose name I know Black Bolt too, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was the first name I recognized so far.
All right, we've got creates powerful sonic vibrations by barking, can discharge concussive energy from his antenna, can teleport himself and others, and communicates by telepathy.
I would Lockjaw, telepathy.
It is not. It's the teleportation one.
Hmm.
So there you go. It's not easy trivia. Casey and
No.
I have been doing it for a couple weeks, and like most of them, we just don't know the answers to offhand. So,
Yeah.
which doesn't happen very often. So, anyway, for those listening, Drew is joining us tonight because he has his DC Comics debut that is out this week in DC's Batman Smells Robin Laid an Egg. And, whenever he told me, I thought we got to have him on to talk about it. So we're going to get to that a little bit later. Um, but we have a couple of news bits to go over. It was a pretty dry news week. But Casey, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a lot, but I guess Criterion is re-upping their deal with Max. And I don't know all the different stuff they're adding, but like the stuff that I saw, they were talking about how they're adding more Godzilla movies. So we're gonna get some Heisei movies added to the Criterion collection on Max. It's Godzilla, The Return of Godzilla, Godzilla versus Biollante, and Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. And that's all we're getting so far, but you'll probably get the rest of the Heisei series as it goes. And I'm assuming you're gonna get more other movies too that are gonna be in the Criterion collection that, haven't had already.
I hope they're doing physical releases of that.
I do too. I want the big collection of the Heisei series. I think that'd be wonderful because I looked into getting most of them on Blu-ray, but
Yeah.
like now if you try to get them, it's fucking
I've
insane.
I've got a good chunk of them on Blu-ray as well. And but that like that Criterion Showa era book with all
Hmm.
the movies, it's so cool.
It is.
I hope they do one of those for the Heisei era.
Same here, man. That like that like I'm surprised they don't have Godzilla versus Destroy on there since that's like last I checked, technically the highest rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So like it finally beat Paddington 2. Like
What what's your guys' favorite movie from that era?
probably Destroya.
Of the Heisei era?
Hmm.
You know what? I have a soft spot. I feel like this is a controversial take. I have a soft spot for Return of Godzilla. I really, really like it, but it's mostly just like because I watched it a lot as a kid, the Godzilla 1985 American
Hmm.
cut. I had a VHS of that I watched over and over and over again, and it scared the hell out of me, but I loved it.
It, dude, I mean, it is pretty scary with that bug monster at the beginning.
Yeah,
Like that part, yeah, and like that's one of those ones where I never watched much as a kid, and then when I finally watched it, I'm like, this is genuinely awesome. Like I don't think I would have appreciated it as much as a kid because it's like there's not another monster that he fights. But when I'm like now, I'm like, no, this one's really
yeah.
good.
If you ever get a if you haven't seen it, they like the original Japanese cut of that,
Hmm.
they expanded that like the sea lice scene, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's so good. I do miss like the Raymond Burr bits because those are kind of cool.
Yeah,
But
it's like that he was the best part about the American cut because like
yeah,
everything else is like a Dr. Pepper ad.
yeah,
But but he like took it seriously and he had that great line of dialogue, at the end and stuff. And so yeah, like if he didn't take it seriously, I don't know if I'd appreciate it as much.
I don't know if I've seen it, if I'm honest.
the
I
like
don't
that movie at all or the
Correct.
Japanese cut.
At all. I don't know that I've seen that one.
It's good.
Yeah. What about you, Jake? Because you've seen a few of the Heisei ones, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, Casey already knows my favorites, King Ghidorah, so probably Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
Plus that poster's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, the guy that painted those, he did such a good job on all of the Heisei posters. It's just like you didn't have to go this hard, man.
But we're glad that he did.
Yeah. Okay, and then my last bit of news that like I guess they're gonna have to do either reshoots or just a lot more editing for the new Captain America movie. The test audiences came back and they were just like, this isn't good. And like one of the things I saw online is like it tried to get political, but it also tried to not like ruffle feathers. So it's like the most bland political type things that it was doing. So it's like this is kind of the worst way of doing politics in a movie where it's just like everyone just kind of doesn't give a shit. So they're having to redo things there.
Not a great sign.
Nope. And I guess the action scenes they said weren't very good either. So
Mm. That sucks because man, I thought that first trailer looked pretty cool.
I,
yeah.
I I think the most recent trailer that they put out is it's I think it's really cool. I think it sets like a very specific tone.
It's
I
now
don't think
gonna get changed, apparently.
I don't think I've seen the newest trailer, but I'm just like I don't know. I think the first trailer I thought looked good, but at the same time I was like, I think they went way too big with it. You don't need, like everything to be like destroying the White House and all that stuff with just a Captain America movie. Like save that
Yeah.
for the Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping for something along the lines of Winter Soldier, but who knows what we're gonna get after reshoots or edits.
Yeah.
All right. The only thing that I have was I saw like a big thing about what the best-selling comic of 2024 is, and I'll ask if either of you have a guess.
I saw
I
what
Okay.
they said.
I did not see, but if I had to guess, I would say that it's either Ultimate Spider-Man or it's Absolute Batman.
Well, those are two of the three in talks. The other one was the Ninja Turtles reboot number
Mm,
one as well. Um, and apparently, like Absolute Batman was claiming that it was, but I think Ultimate Spider-Man gets it on a technicality because they've had seven printings.
right.
And that's, I don't know. Who knows how many Batman's gonna have? They're up to, like, I've already put in the order for third prints on that book. So who knows if it'll make it to seven. But I feel like even as popular as Absolute Batman is, I didn't hear about anybody paying $30 for a first print like I did with Ultimate Spider-Man. I mean,
Yeah.
people were truly going nuts for that book. So I feel like Spider-Man probably takes it this year.
Now, did you actually like sell a seventh printing of that at your shop? That's crazy to me.
Yep. You know, after like I'll judge, how I feel about a second print. Sometimes I've got more than a handful of people that miss the first print, don't care about printing, and they just want to read it. But after second print, if I'm out of it, I'll order like two or three of the next printing. But if there's a seventh printing out just because there's a seventh printing, I'm not gonna get it just to have it.
Hmm.
So yeah, we'll see. It was close to 450,000 sold across all seven printings, and that is definitely significant. And I think
Yeah.
Absolute Batman was around the 300K
Yeah.
mark. So pretty
I
crazy.
I think it's pretty crazy too, though, that like Turtles is the third.
I mean, yes and no, right?
Yeah.
Like Turtles, before they announced the reboot and Jason Aaron, I wasn't even ordering single issues of
Hmm.
the ongoing. Not that comic headquarters is, the end all be all for how a book is doing, but that still says something, right?
Hmm.
And now I bet that title is definitely in the top five for most copies ordered per issue.
Yeah.
So,
That's
I think
awesome.
I think that Last Ronin really kind of like reminded a lot of people that they
Hmm.
liked the Turtles. Uh,
Hmm.
there are people like me who I really like Jason Aaron, so that got me excited that he
yeah,
was going to be
Hmm.
doing Turtles, and but I also really liked Last Ronin. But Last Ronin, I think, is it got a lot of press. And it had like a wide reach into people who don't normally read comics. I really don't know why. I think maybe because they announced like they're doing a video game and possibly a movie adaptation of it. But like I remember kids at my school who were asking me if I knew about The Last Ronin, like a few months after the first issue released. Um, it was crazy the reach that book got.
yeah,
I think that had an effect on making people want to read Turtles again.
Hmm.
yeah.
And it also doesn't hurt that it's pretty dang good so far.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's very good. And I'm right there in that group that you just mentioned. I mean, I watched the cartoon when we were kids. But I'd never read any of the ongoing stuff. So whenever they announced Jason Aaron was on it, it's like, well, now's my chance to give it a shot. If anyone's gonna make me like it, there's a good chance it's Jason Aaron.
Yeah.
And Last Ronin truly was awesome. I didn't know that that book would be for me, having not read any Turtles, but I was wrong. You could definitely not read any Turtles and enjoy that book. So,
Yeah.
all right. And that's our news. So pretty light week, but anyway, Drew is the reason for this episode tonight. So Drew, let's talk about the book that's coming out.
I thought for sure you were about to say that I'm the reason for the season.
You are the reason for the
That's
season.
I was thinking the same thing.
I was just like, all right, yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's before we talk about the book itself, how did this even come about for you?
It's honestly, it's kind of a in the right place at the right time sort of thing. Um, so to go, I mean, we got to go back a couple years. The band that I was in was went on tour with another band. This band called Chemical Fix, who's from Philadelphia. And this, while we were on tour, we met these guys, and we all just became like pretty much instant friends. And in learning about them, one of the guys was just like, "Oh yeah, like I started my own. Some friends and I started our own video game studio." So he started this video game development company called PHL Collective. And like right when I met them, they were starting to get out of just like um developing like games that were just kind of like in-house ideas. Um and uh starting to get like actually hired by companies to make games for them. And so sometime later, pretty much like end of 2020, yeah. I get a message from him that's just kind of like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." So I have a conversation with him. Uh, he tells me they're licensed by Warner Brothers in DC to do a Justice League video game, and they pitched me to write it. And so I signed on, spent about a year and a half, year and a quarter, writing a script for this game all about the Justice League. It came out, it was called Justice League Cosmic Chaos. And then, like, the uh, uh, head of Warner Brothers Interactive or DC Interactive DM'd me on Instagram and said like, he was really complimentary about it and he liked what I had done, and then he was kind of like, have you ever thought about writing comics? Because I know that they're always looking for new people. And I said, yeah, I have been. And he was just like, cool. I'll pass your name along. And I didn't hear from him for a long time. This was like March or April of 2023. I didn't hear from him for a long time. And then in January of this year, I got an email from an editor at DC asking if, just kind of said like, hey, uh, uh, your name's been brought up in the office. We want to see what you can do. We're doing this holiday book. It's kind of how we try out new people. Do you want to pitch a story to us? And obviously I said yes.
Now, what?
So
Oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Jake.
Casey. No,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna ask, what made you want to do Secret Six?
Um, the reason why I went with Secret Six, I wrote 11 total pitches, and then I picked like the five that I liked the most, or the at least the five that I thought had the most chance of being picked by them. Um, Genuinely, the Secret Six thing. Um, Part of it was that I've always liked the Secret Six. I've always liked, like this the Gail Simone
Mhm.
iteration of Secret Six. Uh, Specifically like when Bane joins the team and that entire run. But if I'm being honest, part of it was just because Secret Six almost kind of sounds like Secret Santa. And I said, hey, that's funny. And then then I wrote a story around that conceit, and that was it.
Nice.
Was
It,
uh
it
was that
truly, it really was like one of the last pitches I put together too, because I was like trying to come at it like a little bit more, I don't know, uh, like I was putting together some like higher concept stuff for some of them, and then I was just like, oh, this is funny. I'm gonna write this one down too, and then that was it.
Okay, well, I was about to ask if that was the one that you were like kind of gunning for, but it sounds like it was just happenstance,
It
maybe.
it it was it was not the one that I really wanted them to pick. There were others that I was more excited about, but then like once I started actually like so like the pitches are they're small pitches. I mean they're basically a paragraph. Um and so kind of as I was putting together that paragraph of like what this pitch was going to be, I started to just get more excited about it. So there was a time when I was just like, man, if they pick this one, I'd really be happy about it.
Was there ever a feeling of like I don't really know what I want this to be yet, so if they pick it, like what do I do?
Um, I feel like that's kind of always there with any piece of writing, like just kind of like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know how this works.
Hmm.
Um, but I kind of always knew like where I wanted to go with it and like what I wanted it to be about.
Okay.
So I kind of stuck with that, yeah.
So
Uh,
go ahead.
all right. Now, did you have to do a lot of like I guess prep, like reading up on Bane and the rest of the Secret Six, just to try to get their voices right, or was it that
Honestly,
much not worry?
honestly, I I I I did do quite a bit of that actually. Um, I went through and I reread like maybe like the first 10 or 15 issues of that run to kind of, yeah, pretty much
Hmm.
exactly what you're saying is like trying to get the voices of the characters down. Try to figure out like how would Ragdoll talk? What's a
Yeah.
thing that Ragdoll would say? You know, and the biggest one was the character Jeanette because like she is there are like two characters who are kind of made just for that run. One is Jeanette, and one's Scandal Savage. But Scandal Savage has appeared in other stuff. Jeanette really hasn't. And so yeah, I definitely had to do that for her.
This this is sort of just a more broad question, but when did you realize that you wanted to be a writer or specifically write comics?
Well, I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was really young. Anytime when I was in kindergarten, they asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said Batman. That's a very true story. I literally told the class that I wanted to be Batman. And then like they had to tell me that Batman wasn't real, which I didn't believe. Um, and but like maybe like by second grade, I was telling people like I want to be a writer when I grow up. And that was, I mean, it's always been a thing. Uh, my favorite assignments in school were always like, "Oh, today you're gonna write a story," and I was like, "Great, done." But like when it came to like writing comics, um, I don't know exactly like when I started reading comics regularly when I was like 20, so this had to be like the summer of 2008. And that was like when I first started like kind of like really reading them and recognizing like the literary value of them. Um, I think maybe by like 2010 or 2011, I was just that was when I kind of had decided I could probably take a crack at this and I would really enjoy it.
Hmm.
And so it was like around the time that I kind of started figuring out that that first of all, figuring out comics are more than just superhero stuff. Like that was a really big reading my first like crime comics and stuff like that. It was like that was when it was pretty eye-opening in terms of like, oh, these can be any kind of story. So that kind of opens it up. You don't just have to write superheroes, but also recognizing that superheroes play this really interesting role in media where they're symbolic of like ideas and concepts and like fears and anxieties, but also like dreams and aspirations of an entire culture. And because of like the long lasting nature of them and like the periodical nature of them, that like you pick up a superhero book in the 60s and it's going to like be telling you about the 60s, but you pick up a superhero book from like 5 years ago and it's going to be telling you about that time, even though it's the same character. And I've always I think that's really cool.
It is really cool. I agree.
Hmm.
So, what in your mind then makes a great story? It can be in comics or just in general, but like whenever you read a comic, what makes you go, damn, that was just really good?
I mean, I feel like it's a really generic answer to say like, oh, it has something to say. But I also really believe that. Like if a story feels like it's about something bigger or like it feels like it works on multiple levels. So like you can have your just I connect to the characters and their uh and what they're doing in this and I like that. But then also like oh this is there's a reason that this story like takes place in this year or a reason why this part of the plot like it's trying to say something about what's happening in the time in which it's created. That always resonates with me, and I also think that just if you can find a way to take a pretty universal theme and just kind of tweak it a little bit to where it feels new, um, really like grab on to to things that people think or things that people would want or believe or anything like that. Um, if you can do that, you've done something, you know?
What's a book that's done that for you?
Um, there's a lot. Um, I think I'm gonna give some super cliche answers. I mean, if we're talking like just non-comics, I remember reading like uh Slaughterhouse 5 the first time. And like Slaughterhouse 5 comes at you with a pretty generic message, which is war is bad. But the lens through which it tells that story also deals with like um a science fiction almost fantasy sort of presentation of like PTSD and the effects of war, but also like Vonnegut, the way that he just kind of tackles certain things, certain concepts, where it's like, um, he straight up tells you, you're going to read this book and it's not going to end war, in which case this book will be a failure and it was always going to be a failure. Um, that sort of like almost like pessimistic attitude about things, I think is very realistic. Um, but it also like, that like the ideas that are in that just really spoke to me because it was like, these are bigger things than a book can do, but it can at least like make you feel like you're not so alone thinking about it.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of comics, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I really liked Jason Aaron again. His Scalp series always really resonated with me because it's tackling so many different things all at once. It's dealing with like the human rights issue of like how Native Americans are treated on reservations and by the United States government. It touches on a very human story about like um a a man dealing with a crazy amount of stress, and how does he deal with that? And sometimes it's not the healthiest way, sometimes it's very violent, and sometimes it's very self-harmful. Matt Kint's book, The Fine Art of Strange Crimes, Red-Handed, The Fine Art of Strange Crimes, is another crime book, but it takes this almost like kind of Wes Anderson sort of whimsical approach to it. Um, and it seems like all the stories are disconnected from each other, but when it finally comes together, it's actually a really emotional story. You wouldn't think that about somebody who steals a story about somebody who steals stools and chairs from restaurants because when she takes them home, she feels like she is owning the stories of all the people who have sat there. Um, Jeff Lemire's book, The Underwater Welder, is another one. That book uh, deals with uh, relationships between fathers and sons, and it like I read it at just the perfect time in my life when my dad was in the hospital, and I didn't know that that's what the story was going to be about, and I maybe not would have picked it up if I had known that, but it I really enjoyed reading it at that time, and I think that enhanced the experience for me.
Sure. Okay. Awesome.
You get me talking about that, I'll talk forever.
No, that's totally fine. Uh, I still need to read Underwater Welder. I've owned it for so long and have not read it. Casey, you might have.
I've read it, yeah, because I was like, that was right around when I was on like a hardcore Jeff Lemire kick. So like it was Essex County, The Nobody, and then Underwater Welder for
I
me.
I think Underwater Welder might be his best book.
I
It
I like it a lot, but like when you like Essex County for me was probably my favorite because
Yeah,
I mean it's also like I kind of had to after reading that, Bible of a book, I have to
sure.
say it's my favorite. Now, since this is only a 10-page story, was it tough? Like, because there's no fat on it. Like, it's just like this is like a really good streamlined story. Was that tough to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
listen to the way that I just answered your last question. And I am long-winded, and I mean there were a lot of times where I'm like it's that's a struggle for me, is like trying to make sure that like the story is what it needs to be, but also without just being like generic.
Hmm.
So like there was a lot where I think it's a 10-page story. I think the script in total ended up being around 22 pages. And at one point, I mean like it was I was trimming a lot of dialogue because or like a lot of dialogue, a lot of like monologue, because I was saying way too much. But like at the same time, like you let yourself say a lot, and then you can kind of like,
Hmm.
jigsaw it together and take out the other stuff. And so I'd much rather have too much than not
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. So would you say that self-editing was the most difficult part of writing the whole book?
Yeah, honestly. I think that's tough for a lot of people, is just like in general recognizing that like yeah, I wrote this stuff, but maybe it doesn't need to be there. That's tough.
Yeah. Did uh did you ever come across any writer's block during this particular story?
Um, yeah, here and there, there were little moments when it was kind of just like I don't know where to go with this. Like obviously I knew like how to get like I knew what the story was gonna be, but there was a lot of like how do I get them there?
Hmm.
And how do we put them in the situation? How much of this do I need to explain? Because like um it is first of all it's dealing with a group of characters who haven't been seen in a while. Um so like a lot of readers might not know who they are or what their deal is. But really when it came down to it, it was just like uh the main goal for me was just like get their personalities down and they can figure out the rest of it. But there was definitely a lot of like, how do I get him in this situation?
Was there like any one thing in particular that you would do to fight through that,
I,
or
it was write dialogue first. Um, I had like I had to turn in an outline, so like I kind of knew like what each like a page by page breakdown. Like I knew what had to happen on each page, but there was a lot of like I don't know, like how do I make this page interesting? And so I would just have the characters be talking to each other and then kind of like all right, so I got that out of the way. Now let's do like what's happening on the page. In a way that like showcases their personality, but also because of like the way that the story is structured, that like uh Bane would also have to be kind of providing this inner monologue commentary about them. And so yeah, it's just kind of like I'll write what they're saying first, and then I'll go back and fix it and add in what else needs to be there. And that kind of I feel like that worked itself out.
good? Um, so you obviously have a full-time job and a life. So how did you
Debatable.
how did you like find time to write or work on this? Like, was there a best time of day for you, or just how did you make this work in your normal everyday life?
It was a lot of so I was kind of lucky in that last year I had a class that was basically just a study hall. I did a lot of work during that when I probably should have been grading papers. I also did a lot of like I'm not I cannot stay at home and work on things. I get so distracted. So there was a lot of like going to going out to get breakfast and taking my laptop with me. And that was when I would do a lot of that. So like early morning on the weekends was probably a time when I got a lot of stuff done.
Okay.
Um, I also uh I went up to C2E2 this year and I remember that like I did a lot of finishing touches of the script. Like basically the last pass through it, I just did all on the train while I was on the way up there because I decided not to drive. And you know, you can get in there and you can just connect to their internet and travel while you work, and it's actually a pretty cool deal. I will take the train more often.
That's great. I mean, what better way to pass that
I
time,
I
right?
suddenly became like an Amtrak enthusiast just because of this story.
Yeah. Um, okay. How, like, do you see yourself, and I already know the answer because we just talked about this, but for the listeners, do you see yourself going to uh look at all the reviews that come out about this book? Like, is that something that you would normally do for like your music? Is that something you see yourself doing because it's your first writing project? Like, how important are book reviews going to be, do you think?
It depends on if they're good or bad. If they're bad, not important at all. If they're
Mm,
good, they're the best thing that ever happened to me.
yeah.
Uh, I listen, this is a thing that like I really struggle with, honestly, is like I I can recognize when I think I've done something well, but I do not get internal validation from anything or almost anything. Like I need people to tell me that I am good at things or else it feels like I what's the point? And that's a major hindrance in my life. But like, yeah, for this one too, it's like it's not so much, you know, like I'm looking for validation because I do think that what I did with the story was good, but it's like I almost want like just to see if people are reading it because it's not, you know, it's an anthology. Realistically speaking, it's not the most popular book that's going to be on the shelves, right? And I don't know how many people are going to read it. And so I just want to see if people are and if they like it. And if they do, if they're reading it and they do like it, maybe that can get me more work in comics, which I would really like.
Yeah, I hope that it does. We
Who,
we've had many discussions about what would be next given the opportunity. So
yeah, like who would you want to write next? If you had, if like just perfect world.
Perfect World, Wild
Yeah.
Dog.
Okay, that's not what I
I,
expected.
I've got I've got a wild dog story in me that I just really, really want to tell. That's like a character who I've always wanted to write, which is funny because like I don't think I've read very much Wild Dog at all. Just for some reason, like as a kid, uh, the Max Allan Collins like Wild Dog miniseries was being advertised very heavily in a book in a comic that I had as a kid. And I was just like, this guy's costume is so cool. It's just a hockey jersey. And for some reason I was so attracted to that like it's resonated with me well into adulthood. Uh, Kyle Starks did a Wild Dog story in a few issues. There's like 4 or 5 issues of Batman the Brave and the Bold, that anthology that's coming out now, and it's really good. Um, and he was in town here some time ago, and I talked to him, and I was just like, "Listen, like, I'm doing this work for DC. I'm gonna write Wild Dog someday, and I think that like you doing this book helped." He's just like, I hope you do. Wild Dog rules.
I mean, it is a cool costume for sure.
Like I can really relate to that though, because I saw Starman's like the Jack Knight Starman
Yeah.
costume, and I think it was like Marvel versus DC. Like there was advertisement for that. I'm like, I don't know what this guy is, but
He just
he's the coolest.
goggles,
Yeah.
goggles, trench coat, Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah. I'm just like, this is it. This someday I'm gonna read this book. And I finally did. I'm like, okay, this is actually awesome. This isn't what I expected. This
Yeah.
is great.
I've got a few stories in me. I really want to do um like an idea for like a horror short that could go in like the new EC comics, and I really want to do one of those. Um, I have I got ideas for like an unlikely team up that I think would be really cool. I've got a Firestorm story that I've been thinking up the last few months or so. Um, yeah, there are places that I would like to go. I don't know that I'm the guy for like any heavy hitters. I have a Batman story that's just like an elevator pitch that would never get picked up. Nobody would think that it's interesting, but that's as close to a Batman story as I would ever want to tell. I don't think I'm smart enough to tell a good Batman story, at least not right now.
Well, Batman's your favorite. Surely
He
you've
is
thought
my
of that over the years.
he is my favorite, and it's just like I I I know how easy it is to tell just like a generic run-of-the-mill Batman story, and that's not what I want to read. So I wouldn't, I don't think that I would be the guy to write Batman. I'll leave that for like people who are better.
So, I mean, I would have to imagine that, like, if maybe the right people at DC or just enough people are talking about, this holiday book, some of those that you mentioned that don't really have anything going on, I mean, I
I
feel like it's likely they would let you do a mini series, right? I mean, DC's doing tons of minis over the last few years.
Yeah. I went to at C2E2. I went to a panel that was it was called like How to Break into DC Comics, and it was like several artists and a few writers. Like Chip Zdarsky was there, Tim Seeley was there, Jorge Jimenez, a few other people, and but it was hosted by the editor who asked me to do this book. And one of the things that like I think Chip Zdarsky was the one who really hammered this home. He was just like, look, nobody cares about your Batman story because there are 1,000 Batman stories that everybody wants to tell. But he was just like, pick a small character and you come at them with like a thing that's going to make people pay attention to him, and that's what editors are really looking for. And kind of as soon as he said that, I was, which is kind of a thing I already knew, but also like hearing somebody actually say it, it has stuck in me. And now I'm like always on the look for what can I do with this character that nobody's really cared about.
Hmm. Well, I mean, some of those turn out to be just the best stories. Not saying that he, is insignificant or whatever, but Casey and I are both reading that Plastic Man No More.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Hmm.
It's so fucking good.
Again,
Um,
Kyle Starks.
yeah, is it Kyle
It is Kyle
Starks?
Starks.
Oh, okay. Dang, I was way off on that. But
I think, right? Am I
I thought
wrong?
it was, wait, I thought it was Matt Kent.
No.
no,
It's not, no. Wait.
I thought it was Christopher Cantwell.
Oh, yeah.
It
No,
is
you're
Christopher
right. You're
Cantwell.
right.
You're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
But anyway, obviously Plastic Man's been around forever, but uh my cat is just broke into my room. Can't keep that little guy out of anything.
You made me a
Anyway,
cat man.
I know, right? Anyway, it's just he's had a mini or two over the years, but nothing crazy. But man, I feel like this has got to be just the best Plastic Man I've ever read, right?
Yeah,
So,
awesome.
uh, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say with that. Hopefully, your wild dog thing happens and somebody can be like, this is the best wild dog I've ever read. Um, but okay. I don't know how in depth you want to go into your story, but I mean, uh I've got it up on the screen with me. So if there like I don't know if you want to like talk through it or if there's just anything you want to say about it, but I'm just gonna let you talk about specifically the story now if you want
Okay.
to.
Sure. Um, well, let's see. It's I don't have it in front of me, so uh I know that like partially so the premise of it for anybody who is maybe listening to this and didn't read it. The premise of it is that like the Secret Six, who is this group of villains who they kind of like were hired guns essentially. Not quite the Suicide Squad because they're like actually hired and paid money originally. Um, they're kind of put together to do these like odd jobs, and uh, they kind of have like almost like an A team feel to them. It's also like it's very darkly comedic. If you go back and read that Gail Simone run, like it's funny, um, in a pretty distinct way. Um, but yeah, so like I kind of was trying to think of like, okay, who are characters that I would want to write, and I landed on Bane, and it was just kind of like, well, I don't think I can do just a Bane story because, like, what does Bane have to do with the holiday, right? It's got to be holiday themed of some kind. And so I was just like, oh, well, put him in with his old buddies, and we can tell a story there. So, like, the premise is that they're being put together to pull a job for the first time in a really long time, and Catman being kind of like I don't know he's kind of like a silly dude at times. It's just kind of like, wouldn't it be funny if we did Secret Santa? And so Bane doesn't understand Secret Santa, and so like while they're on this job, he's uh, kind of like trying to figure out um, he's trying to figure out who might have given him a gift, but he hasn't gotten the gift yet. And so he's trying to like reverse engineer it. So like, oh, I know this about this character, and if they get me something that reminds me of these qualities, then it must be from them. Um, because I think that like one of the things about Bane is that he just cannot he can't not know things. Um, which I mean, I think that stems from like his childhood and how he grew up and all that stuff. So just like absolutely kills him to not know things, and so he's like trying to not play by the rules and figure out who his secret Santa is before he even gets the gift. And that's basically the premise of the story.
So, well, I love the story, and I'm not just saying that
Mhm.
because you're my friend and you're on the show. I genuinely thought it was very, very good.
Well, thank you.
Um, and just it's also extremely well complemented by the art team, by the way.
Mhm.
Um, the art and the colors, I mean, it was just a knockout. The colors, by the way, it was very like Francavilla almost. It's
Yeah.
like this is how Francavilla would color his work, and I thought
Yeah.
that was awesome.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of too, which is like I love that. He's in the book too as well. He has a story in there, a Dr. Midnight story. But it's not colored. It's in black and white.
I cannot wait to read that. But yeah,
Yeah,
just
it was Mariana Ignazzi is who did the art. She's an Italian artist who has done some really cool work. Her book at Image that's coming out right now, Self-Help, I think is really fun, really cool. Um, it's kind of like if you liked Breaking Bad, but like maybe you didn't want it to be so heavy. Uh, I would recommend that book to you for sure. And the colorist Giovanna uh, was kind of just like Mariano was just like, hey, I'm gonna work with this person if that's cool. And they were just like, yep, it's very cool. I think that they had I think the two of them had worked together on in during the Absolute Power event, one issue of Batman had a Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy backup, and they did the art together on that. And that I think that was their first thing that they did at DC together. And pretty much after that, the editors were just like, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want."
well, yeah, how could they not, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I really did enjoy Bane's narration. You know, we get to see bits and pieces from his childhood. I don't want to give away, you know, the gift or anything like that, but I genuinely thought that was very touching, especially because you don't really get that with Bane ever, right?
yeah. I mean, there's parts of that in and what like one of the great things that Gail Simone did with Secret Six, and the reason why I keep bringing her up is because she's the only person who's written the Secret Six. Like it's basically her baby. Um, it's spun out of like her uh what was it, Countdown? There was a series called Villains United
Hmm.
that turned into Secret Six, which is like Secret Six originally, much like Suicide Squad, was a military book in the 60s or 70s. And they updated it to be uh this like villain team up. So it's like it has a lot of parallels with Suicide Squad. In fact, John Ostrander even came in and did like some issues of Secret Six. And I think there was like a crossover with Suicide Squad at one point with Ostrander writing. Um but yeah, I mean, like one of the coolest things that she did is she really turned Bane into somebody you could like not just like a cool villain, but like legitimately somebody that, yeah, he may have been okay with killing people in the past, and maybe, yeah, he broke Batman's back, but like he kind of seems like just a pretty normal, regular dude, despite all of the more fantastical elements. And that's what I've always really liked about that run is the way that she humanizes the characters. Um, And so like I really wanted to do that too because I thought it would be fun.
Hmm.
And yeah, what better way to humanize a character than by making them think about Christmas presents?
So apart from Bane, I'm curious who Is there like another member of that team that really resonated with you or that you just think is funny or whatever?
I really liked. I mean, I like them all,
Hmm.
for sure. But I really liked writing Catman in this, and I kind of wish that I had gotten to do more, because I think that like Catman is just this. He's such an interesting character because like he's clearly like a throwaway Batman villain from a long time ago, who like somebody, probably Gail Simone, was just like, whatever happened to that guy? I want to do something new with him. And yeah, I mean, there's the whole, I mean, there's like a theme of like reinvention with him because he, completely changed himself, but also there's like a meta narrative there because they had to change him, like reinvent the character for the book to do well at all. Um, yeah, I just thought he was cool. Like he's just like there's something inherently silly about a guy who dresses up like a cat, but also like it's not that much sillier than a guy who dresses like a bat.
Hmm.
And I think that like he himself also recognizes those two things. And so he is kind of a comic relief character, but he's not just a comic relief character. He's
Yeah.
actually like an interesting guy.
Well, I loved the all the employment opportunity jokes that were made in the story. He was very funny.
Mhm.
Um but yeah, I think and I know that you must obviously feel this way too, but how Bane feels towards Scandal uh adds that other, humanizing element to him and obviously that starts in Secret Six, but I think that you add on to that here because, if you get somebody a Christmas present, theoretically you care about that person.
Mhm.
And so he's doing it for the first time for somebody that uh and I think you even say that like he only feels this way about Scandal, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought that was really nice. It was a touching moment to just actually read it on a page.
Yeah, I mean that moment, like the moment where they get to have their moment, that was that was the driving thing in the book for me, is just like, how do you get to this moment? You have to get here. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was always like that was as soon as like I said, I had the dumb idea. Oh, Secret Six kind of sounds like Secret Santa. And then after that, it's just like, okay, but like, what does that story look like? And that was the moment that I had in my head. And it wasn't always like that gift, but I got there. It felt like it just made sense for it to be that gift. And
Hmm.
speaking vaguely, because I don't want to,
Of course.
spoil anything.
So there's one panel where uh, they get to a room where the gift is, and there's some fun little Easter eggs in that room. Was that you, or was that the artist?
That was me, and there were a lot more, but uh, it was like there were a lot more, but it was more like they're kind of more just like suggestions of like, oh, this would be funny. And yeah, so they're like references to other books and other villains and stuff like that. Um, and the idea is that it's supposed to be like a big room full of them. Um, I remember two things. Number one, like writing it and just being like, these are some ideas for what could be in there. I think that this would be funny. I think that people would really like this. And it was kind of just like listed in the panel description. But then when I got that panel back, I was just like, hell yeah, this looks so cool. And then we got lettering back, and I had written too much. Um, I think that panel was the most challenging for me personally because what had happened was like we get the lettering back and there's so much dialogue that it's covering everything. And like Mariana did a lot of work on that panel and there's a lot of a lot of cool stuff that she put in there. But at the same time, it was really hard to trim it down because there's like insets for each of these characters around there and it was kind of like how do we keep all of them saying the same thing that flows well into each other with this layout without completely changing the paneling and eventually we got there. But yeah, it was like I remember when I first saw it, I sent an email back that was just like, "Hey, I wrote too much and it's covering too much of her art. We have to change it."
Right. Is there uh is there like any particular Easter egg that got cut that you're like, dang, that would have been really cool to keep?
That's a great question, and truth be told, I cannot remember what's in the script off the top of my head.
That's fine. That's
But
fine.
I know that there's a few things that like didn't make it in there.
I am curious. So it looks like there's a sign pointing to a box that says New Gods, maybe. Is that correct?
Yeah,
What's in the box?
the New Gods maybe.
All of them?
Yeah. I can tell you who's not in there, Mr. Miracle.
True that.
Uh no, I actually think what's funny is that I think that like box that says New Gods maybe. I think that that was like a mistranslation, like a misunderstanding of what I was saying. I literally think that I was saying like this, and New Gods maybe. And she was just like, "Oh, it'd be fun." Like she put New Gods maybe, which is even funnier. Like
Yeah,
that's way funnier than what I said.
I like how it all came out. It was cool.
Yeah, no, that's I don't know if that was her intentionally being funny or if that was her because like she's translating it into Italian.
Hmm.
So like I don't know if maybe that just it like the translation like came out to where it told her to put that, but either way it was funny.
Right. Really, my last question about the story itself, did we're referencing a gift, the one that Bane gets. Did you always know the gift that he gives as well, or did that come before or
Yeah.
after?
So that's the thing that I didn't know. I knew
Okay.
what the gift he got was going to be.
Yeah.
I knew that. And I went there were two different there were two different ways that I was going to go with it. And I settled on one and then I had the idea for the one that actually made it into the book. Um, but I kept both. I kept both because um like in the outline. I kept both because number one, I felt like the one that was in that actually made it into the finished one was a little bit stronger than what the other one was. But also it's a total it's this is a total very niche Easter egg. Which is uh there is there's a band I really like called Bane who is not related to the comic book character at all. They're not like named after him or anything like that. Um, but they have an album title, like my favorite album by them. I'm not going to tell you the title here because I feel like that kind of gives it away. But like what he gives is a reference to the title of that album. And so it's just a way for me to kind of sneak a little wink, wink, nod, nod to other people who might like this band.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they would pick up on it because it's like, it's not outright at all. But um,
That does vaguely remind me, and this may have come up the last time you were on, but you two are the only two people that I know in real life that are fans of the Mountain Goats.
oh
And
yeah,
I know that both of you know that reference. It's made in, what is it, a Thor comic or
Yeah.
something like that?
there's one in Thor and there's one in Iron Man.
Okay.
What was the one in Iron Man?
In Matt Fraction's Iron Man run, um, Matt Fraction's Iron Man run, I can't remember who is fighting Iron Man, but she has him like pinned down underneath something
Hmm.
or and she says to him, I want to say that it's like what was the name of it? Was it Invincible Iron Man was his run or
I think so, yeah.
it's like Invincible Iron Man number 13 or something like that. I
Hmm.
have the issue. I bought it just because there's a Mountain Goats reference in it. But yeah, so like he's fighting someone, she has him like pinned down, and he says to her, "I hope you die." And she pulls out a grenade and pulls the pin and says, "I hope we both die," which is from
Yeah.
the song No Children. Yeah, and so he was dropping Mountain Goats references all over the place. But like
Hmm.
that's a thing that I'm super into is like making references to bands that I like and
Well,
like music and stuff like that.
you've now done it yourself.
I've done it.
All right. Casey, did you have any story specific questions?
More just the art with the artist. Like, how did you guys get paired up? Was it like a choice, or was it just editorial, just being like, you guys are together? And then
So
what was working with them like?
so um it was not a choice for me. But apparently it was a choice for her.
Okay.
Like I said, she had been doing she had been working on some DC stuff. I think she's still working on stuff for them right now. Um, but like I guess they asked her if she was interested in doing the anthology, and they showed her a list of pitches, and she picked the one that she wanted to do. So she picked
Okay.
mine.
Nice.
And so that was cool because I really like her work, so it was cool
Hmm.
to be like, oh, she picked mine.
Yeah.
Uh, I like to think that she was enthusiastic about it. Most likely, it was just kind of like, I'll do this one, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, you never know.
And
So
then
did,
was there like any collaboration with like as far as the story? Like, did she come back with anything, or was it
You
not
know
like
what?
that?
You know what? I am not a very visual. I'm not a very visual guy. So like trying to describe panels and stuff like that, I can do some pretty basic stuff like tell you kind of what I'm going for, but I always put at the top of every script I've ever written that has gone to an artist, I've always said, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. You are the expert on the art. So anything you need to change, do it. If you think that it's something that's going to affect the story, just and you feel like you want to ask about it, do it. Um, and I mean, she said like, "Hey, I'm thank you for doing that because that gives me a lot of freedom." There was the only time that we really had to have a back and forth. And when I say back and forth, that makes it sound like an argument. It was just kind of like um, she at one point had drawn Ragdoll like just standing straight up in a time when I was just like, I don't think he would be doing that.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of said like, oh, I think Ragdoll, put them in more of like a contorted thing. And within like a couple of minutes, she had done that.
Nice.
That was it. I mean, she
Yeah.
was super easy to work with. It does not hurt that she is wildly talented and just knows what the hell she's doing. Um, yeah, it was great. And I mean, I don't know how much of it is just her being polite, but she really was just kind of like, I had a lot of fun working on this with you. I hope we get to work together again. And I was like,
Nice.
me too.
I hope you do. Hopefully
Yeah.
it's on Wild Dog.
Wild Dog Goes to Venice. That's our story.
Is it really?
Why not?
All right. Um, yeah, I mean that's kind of all I had. Casey, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
What were the other gifts the other ones got in the Secret Santa? What would you have been like, oh, Catman was gonna get this and Deadshot was gonna get this?
Um, I did think about that stuff a little bit. Um, I was gonna have Deadshot was going to get something to do with his daughter. Like something that he can do with his daughter. Um, Catman, I really don't know what I would have had Catman do. I feel like it would be funny to have Catman get like one of those big thick Gotham City coupon books. Uh, of just like things to do around Gotham, which is like, I don't know. To me, that would be funny that somebody would give him that. Uh, just because, like, what does a thief care about saving, like, getting a bargain? But it'd be
Hmm.
funny if, like, uh, the book said something like, oh, deal's so good, you're practically stealing, stuff like that.
All right. Well, Drew, it has been a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time
Thank
to
you.
talk to us about it. I I respect you and your creative endeavors a lot, so I'm really proud of you and happy for you that this
Thank you.
happened, and I really hope that it leads to more comics work for you. So, um, I think that's everything on our end as well. Casey, am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so, man.
Oh, for local listeners, Drew is going to be at comic headquarters all day on Wednesday signing copies of the book. So, if you want to talk to Drew yourself, ask him questions about the book, get your copy signed, he will be there. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much everything from us, guys. So we hope that you enjoyed our little interview with Drew. Pick up his book, read it. It really is a really, really good story. And you know, we'd love to stay and chat, but we have a job to pull. So we'll catch you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Also, tweet about it too. Like, talk about the book.
Yes, please do.
Don't just buy it. Let
I
DC know you liked
Listen, this is what you do.
it.
This is what you do. My self-esteem hinges on this. Buy the book. If you like it, DM me on Instagram and say, "Hey, I liked that book." If you don't like it, don't talk about it. Don't say anything. Don't tell me.
There you go. And we will be sure to include Drew's social handles so that you can tell him that you liked it. Um, so yeah, there you go. All right, that's it from us. Goodbye.
Bye.
I
Thank you for listening to the Two Worlds Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Two Worlds Pod, on Twitter at two_worlds_PC, and on Facebook at facebook.com/twoworldspodcast. You can email us with any questions or comments at twoworldspodcast@gmail.com, and if you would, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are Two Worlds Podcast on YouTube.